Good morning, and thank you for joining the Poll Call sponsored by Lumen. My name is Dylan Keith, Paul of the Vegas Chamber. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few features of this call. If you're using the desktop or mobile Zoom applications, you may type a question at any time using the question pane at the bottom of the screen. We'll answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Likewise, you're highly encouraged to ask questions live. Use the hand raise button at the bottom of your screen, and when we open up for questions, we will call your name and unmute your line. Please ensure you are unmuted on your end, and please keep questions brief so we can get to as many as possible. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Vegas Chamber Vice President of Government Affairs, Paul Moradkhan.
Thanks, Dylan, and thanks for everybody for joining us today. I'd like to also thank our sponsor, Lumen. Lumen is the rebranded name for CenturyLink, so thank you for their continued support of the Poll Call. Again, thank you to Lumen for supporting this feature for our membership. We're going to get into some topics for today. Stats in the legislative building. We are picking up on information that the building may open around mid-April, around April 15th or so. They have vaccinated the staff and legislators. They're also installing some new security features into the building to enhance safety. So once the building does reopen, you will see metal detectors and scanners that folks will have to go through before they're able to enter the rest of the building. So there looks like they're installing those on the first floor through the main doors. We're assuming there'll also be another set in the back of the building, but we'll see what happens with that. But again, we're picking up conversations with legislators and other chatter. The building should be reopening in about 2 weeks or so. Also, for folks that have lobbied legislators and have not yet registered to do that, the deadline is today. So even if you're a volunteer for a nonprofit and you're lobbying on behalf of it, you do need to register. There are different fee schedules set in place. A paid lobbyist is $300. A nonprofit lobbyist is $20, and then I think veterans are $0, but it's available on the LCB lobbyist registration page. So if you fall into those categories, I would recommend you checking that out to see if you need to register or not. So we'll go ahead and move into some of the issues that topics we're dealing with. As you may recall from the last Poll Call in March, the March 15th bill introduction deadline had been suspended, and it's currently still suspended. Bills are still dropping, but the majority of the bills are out. You have a little over 400 in the Assembly side, a little below 400 in the Senate side. So most of the major legislation at this time we think is out. So it gives a more global perspective of what we're facing as a business community. The next major deadline is next Friday, April 9th. That's what we refer to as first committee passage of the first House. And typically what that means, if a bill was not exempted with an exempt stamp, it means it had to pass first committee passage. And that means it would have been voted out of the committee by the majority for it then to be processed to go to the floor. We're starting to hear at this point that deadline may also be waived on April 9th or suspended or change the date. We don't have that information this time, but we are anticipating that the April 9th deadline will not hold. And that could also impact the first House passage on the 20th, and then the second House passage requirements and second committee passage for May. They could suspend all those deadlines and just hold to May 31st, which is the constitutionally designated end of the legislative session for sign die. So that is the only one that really is dictated by the Constitution. Everything else is based on the rules of the body. So typically, these deadlines were good news for the business community. If it didn't get out because of the deadline, the bill died, but we don't have that luxury this session. So bills will keep moving regardless of deadlines from what we're being told, and we'll keep everybody updated on that. As of last night, the chamber is tracking 620 BDRs and introduced pieces of legislation. The chamber has testified on 72 bills, and about half of those bills have been in opposition on employment rules, regulations, legal environment, tort bills, workers' comp, I believe, taxpayer issues, education, healthcare, economic development, public lands, water, So quite a few different issues that the chamber is working on this session. And want to thank the team. Dylan, David, and Erica have done a phenomenal job really helping take on a lot of these different issues on behalf of the members of the session. So cannot thank them enough for their due diligence and we're on advocating on behalf of our membership. We're going to go through some bills that we were participating on this week alone and some updates on some other bills for folks. One of the bills, AB 255, was heard this week and was brought forward by Speaker Fierson. It revises the Clark County School District boards and other boards for school districts throughout the state. Currently, the CCSD school board is 7 elected officials, broken up in geographic zones throughout Clark County. This bill would change that where 3 seats would be appointed, 4 would be elected. The chamber is supporting the bill. The chamber believes that the current governance structure of the Clark County School District is impacting the quality of education for our students, and students are the most important constituency in K through 12 education. So the chamber is supporting that bill. There is, of course, opposition from the school board members and from some of the unions, but the chamber believes this is an important reform bill for our students in Southern Nevada. Senator Neal had 2 bills up this week, SB 314 and SB 320. SB 314 deals with the marketplace for high volume sellers as it relates to organized crime. They want to see additional oversight regulations dealing with organized crime outfits that steal goods or counterfeit goods placed on the internet. This will help curtail harming and swindling of Nevada families and residents. So the chamber did support that bill. SB 320 deals with food delivery service platforms, third-party food delivery apps that many people use. There has been an ongoing issue between the restaurants and these third-party apps. The chamber support SB 320 to ensure that restaurants are protected with their copyright, their menus and their services, their impact fees. But I recognize, of course, residents do enjoy the convenience of the third-party platform. We want to see some parity and some oversight with the way how the system works. The bill was brought forward by the Nevada Restaurant Association and Nevada retailers, so the chamber is supporting the bill. Next is AB 206, and I believe, Erica, you have an update for that for the members.
Yes, so the AB 206 bill will provide students whose parents or guardians that are servicemen and servicewomen more ease and accessibility to continue their education seamlessly through the K through 12 education experience. More specifically, Section 1 explains that students who are receiving Nevada education from afar to be included in the count of pupils. So this bill is highly, highly beneficial and will provide added support for our students and their route to graduation.
Excellent. Thanks, Erica. And Erica's been doing a great job really helping a lot with the education bills for first session lobbying. So Erica, great work on those efforts. Next, we have Senator Ratty, SB 284. And again, these are bills we're supporting. So I'm going to turn it over to David Daslich, who's taking the lead on behalf of the members on affordable housing issues. David?
Thanks, Paul. SB 284 deals with the transferable tax credits for affordable housing developers. This is a continuation of legislation that was passed last session. It's designed to encourage the development of private affordable housing, expanding the affordable housing stock. Key to SB 284 are 2 pieces in the legislation. One is that in certain cases, this will allow affordable housing developers to receive the tax credits up front, no longer requiring them to apply for bridge loans, which was a standard practice previously. It also rolls back the sunset, allowing developers to apply for these transferable tax credits until the initial $40 million that was allocated has been exhausted, rather than having to come back and renew it every session. We were in favor of this bill as it does incentivize private development of affordable housing, which is short in this state. Thanks, Paul.
Great. Thank you, David. Great update. Next, we're going to go back to Erica, who's going to give an update on a bill from Senator Harris, SB 287, as it relates to higher education. Erica?
Okay, so SB 287, our chairwoman Gina Bonjovi testified on this yesterday. So SB 287 will provide more federal dollars and or in our state, and more specifically towards our state land grant institutions. This bill will allow federal funds and the state matching to support research opportunities and funding for Nevada's higher education. So this bill will be very beneficial for students, faculty, and community in these institutions. So SB 287 will be very much advantageous for our workforce development in our state.
Great, thanks, Erica. And this has been a standing priority for the chamber. So ensuring it's codified that UNLV and DRI, along with UNR, are land grant institutions in the state of Nevada. So thanks for that update, Erica. Next, we're going to go to Dylan Keith, who's going to give an update about Southern Nevada Foreign Priority Bill, SB 362.
Thanks, Paul. So yeah, as you were saying, it is SB 362 is a Southern Nevada foreign priority. The bill came out of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and it was basically meant to provide microtransit services in Southern Nevada. So currently, we were actually written out of that law as it was written before. What this bill does is it just changes that language and ensures that Clark County isn't excluded, and that we can provide an alternative option through RTC to get passengers around town. And it's especially beneficial to areas like Southwest Henderson, where there's new developments and they don't quite have established transportation systems there yet. So this will be a pretty big benefit to a lot of residents in the Vegas Valley.
Great, thanks, Dylan. And thanks, Dylan, for all of his work on coordinating the Southern Nevada Forum. As you know, there's 5 different committees that the forum is working on. So it's a lot of work. So Dylan, thanks for your lead on that. And next, we're going to go back to David, who's going to give an update on SB 335, which was just heard this morning.
Thanks, Paul. SB 335 also is a Southern Nevada Forum priority brought forward by Senator Hardy, deals with recommendations from the Sunset Commission on a number of boards that deal with professional licensing of medical caregivers. If you recall, one of the priorities from the Southern Nevada Forum was to look at ways that we could streamline licensing for medical caregivers to make us more competitive with our neighboring states such as Utah and Arizona, as well as foster a regulatory environment that was conducive to retaining physicians within the state of Nevada. So that is what this bill, SB 335, attempts to do. As I said, it was a Southern Nevada Forum priority, so we are in support.
Great, thanks, David. Next, there's a bill this afternoon in Assembly Revenue at 4 o'clock, AB 435, regarding the commerce tax. This language would clarify the intent of what the commerce tax was adopted as it relates to trade shows and exhibits during conventions. The intention of the commerce tax was not to capture those transactions since it's a trade show. Department of Tax, the state level, thinks they should be. That was never the intention. So the chamber will be supporting this bill as it clarifies those trade show vendors would not be charged underneath the commerce tax. So that'll be up this afternoon in Assembly Revenue. Some updates on some other bills that we've provided updates on and where they're working at. SB 293, that is a provision related to business that was regarding pay equity. It was a hearing yesterday. The chamber is neutral on the bill and testified as such. This bill codifies the Ninth Circuit Court ruling back in December of 2020 that said employers can no longer ask applicants their wage history based off of concern of employment discrimination and salary inequity for gender reasons. So it is already the standing practice of the federal law, of federal ruling. So Senator Canizero is codifying the state law. The chamber did go neutral on the hearing. We believe this is a better version of this topic than AB 124, which is brought forward by Sullivan B. Duran. 124 goes pretty extensively into legal actions and impact on the employer climate. So we believe 293 is a much cleaner bill, and we were neutral on that. SB 387 is a new bill that was introduced maybe about 4 or 5 days ago. Revises provisions relating to labor and employment. Right to return to work is what we're calling it. It's currently being reviewed by the Government Affairs Committee. Basically, it directs if employees in hospitality, airport hospitality, or travel were laid off or furloughed related to COVID-19, then those employers would have to offer those jobs back to those employees first, not going out to the marketplace to hire a new employee. It would be a 2-year provision in state law. There's a whole series of steps that an employer would have to take, notifying everything from certified mail for each job posting be sent to an employee. You would have to provide training if the employee could become eligible and qualified to receive that employee training. Employees would have 10 days to decline a job offer. So a lot of prescriptive items that go into state law. So again, currently been sent out to committee members for review. Philosophically, I think the chamber would have a concern about this because this could easily be expanded to include grocery, hospital, construction, name it, any industry could get into it. Nevada is a right to work state. It's my opinion that this would be a workaround that and impact that status for employers. Next, Senator Neal has introduced SB 376, which imposes a digital goods tax. That hearing will be sometime next week. Currently, the chamber is neutral with several amendments that are coming that we had heard concerns from several members, but at this time, the chamber is neutral with those amendments addressing those members' concerns. SB 327 is another bill brought by Senator Neal. We are monitoring it. There was a hearing yesterday about it regarding discriminatory practices and specifically hairstyles, braids, locks, those type of things. So chamber is monitoring that. She's open to some amendment about safety equipment and hairstyles. So we're continuing to monitor that. SB 209 revises paid time practices. This is a bill brought forward by Senator Donante that would require employers to provide 4 hours of 4 hours of paid time off to get this COVID-19 vaccine. There are several exemptions in that. First of all, it's employees 50 or up. If you're offering employees a vaccination site at your facility or property, you won't have to provide the 4 hours. They could use them for 2 2-hour blocks to get the first shot and the second shot. So it is a pared down bill from what was originally being contemplated. So the chamber is neutral now with its concerns mitigated. SB 200 by Senator Harris provides for the establishment of its retirement savings program for the private sector. The bill was heard last night in the Senate Government Affairs. Hugh Anderson, chair of the Government Affairs Committee, opposed the bill on behalf of the chamber for several reasons. One, in full sake of transparency, the chamber and other chambers by federal law are now able to offer retirement savings programs. Several members may be participation currently with Caldera Wealth, who is our partner in that. Also, it's an opt-in, not opt-out. So employers and employees would have to have those funds taken out of their paycheck and put into the state retirement program. We're concerned that it's an opt-in, and it's automatic opt-in. You have to opt out within 60 days. Again, concerned about that requirement on employees and the competition to the private sector. And then in terms of some other ones, B. Duran, AB 124, still trying to work through that bill. That is the companion bill to Senator Canizaro's bill. This one is more problematic from the business community side because of the legal actions and that's in there. Susan Martinez, actually, this is about posting of requirements for employers about job training programs are available in the state. I'm going to turn over to David real quick to give a quick update on 146 from Sarah Peters.
146 is Assemblywoman Peters' bill. It deals with various water sources and rates of water pollution. Unfortunately, as written, it fails to take into account a lot of the current measures that are in place, especially by the mining industry. The mining industry is already dedicated to mitigation of the various diffuse sources. A number of the local water boards and water oversight authorities are also in opposition until this can be amended to provide better definitions. Unfortunately, this bill was brought from out-of-state interests, and it is not directly addressing any current issues within the state of Nevada or our water conservation and management systems. So for those reasons, we are in opposition. Thank you.
Great, thanks, David. AB 307 has now been released, and it deals with the public sector employment diversity issues and reporting and so forth. So Chambers is monitoring that. Now we're going to go on to Selena Torres's bills. I'm actually going to go back to David for an update on AB 161.
AB 161 is one of the landlord-tenant bills that we are monitoring. Would end the process of summary eviction throughout the entire state. It is a major concern, especially with the limitations on evictions that have been put in place during the pandemic. So the realtors and the apartment association both have some serious concerns. Ideally, with strong enough opposition, this bill will not move forward, but we're still taking it very seriously.
Great. Thanks, David. And then I'll get an update on AB 221 and AB 222. AB 221 is what's classified as a right to repair bill. The chamber opposed the bill this week, early in the week, on behalf of our members who spent quite a bit of money on research and development on new products that come out to the marketplace. We are concerned about the impact it would have on that. Also, safety for those contractors and are trained to repair this type of equipment and so forth. So the chamber was opposed to 221. AB 222 is governing employment practices. It's a whistleblower bill. Whistleblower is already illegal in Nevada and NRS, I believe Chapter 601. The chamber doesn't have issue with that piece of the bill. It's the legal climate and the impact that would have on our members and the unfair legal standing that would create for employees versus employers. So the chamber is opposed to 222. Then moving on, Assembly Bill 380 has come out. This is from Assemblywoman Leslie Cohen regarding the natural gas regulations that would see a shift away from natural gas over the next 30 years. The chamber is opposed to the bill. AB 373 was recently heard. This was heard on Monday. Our immediate past chairman, Tom Burns, opposed the bill. Basically, it would allow the state's public employee benefits program to create a pilot program to offer standing or near healthcare clinics. PEBS is a retirement benefit program. We have concerns about them trying to manage clinics and the impact it would have on their operational budgets and on the state. So we oppose that bill. Assemblyman Flores yesterday had a hearing on AB 246 regarding governing practices to employees. We are opposed. This is related to COVID-19. We believe this is a workaround on SB 4, which is the business limited liability bill. It will require more reporting and notifications and documentation for employers. Chamber is opposed to the bill. As many of you know, you have to comply with federal guidance, state directives, local government guidelines. There's just too much on employers to constantly have to mitigate these types of documents. And having something put in state law for a temporary situation is a concern to the chamber. I'm going to turn it back to David. He's going to give a quick update on AB 141.
Thanks, Paul. AB 141 from Assemblyman Howard Watts deals with the sealing of evictions during the declared state of emergency related to the pandemic. This is an issue because the broad nature of the bill would seal all evictions regardless of the cause. There has been an amendment offered by the Realtors and Apartment Association that would limit it to the sealing of evictions that are related to the loss of income. However, that has not been accepted at the moment. This is a bill that we continue to work on with our partners at the Apartment Association and the Realtors Association, as this is considered to be a more fixable bill than Assemblywoman Torres's 161, which would ban summary evictions altogether.
Thanks, David. And then finally, Assembly Bill 303 revises the paid time practices. There was a hearing yesterday. The Business Committee came out pretty strong opposition to the bill that was brought by the Assemblywoman. We have concerns with it because it would change. It's trying to clarify how the paid time off is used the holidays. It's still a little confusing what they're trying to achieve here from some of the progressive groups. So the chamber is opposed. We believe state law that was created by last session by SB 312 works. And for the record, Nevada is a PTO state. PTO can be used for any reason. If you want to take a mental health day, you want to take your child to the doctor, if you just want to stay in bed all day and sleep or watch TV, you can do that. And your employer cannot tell you cannot take that time off for the reasons. For scheduling, that's a different story, but they can't deny your time off for the reason. So the progressives keep saying it's a sick leave bill. That is not accurate. We specifically adopted a PTO standard. So it can be used for any reason. It's a more streamlined process for employees and employers both. Then regarding some of these other bills, SB 18 concerns have been mitigated. The fine structures that were proposed by the PUC have come down. There was a hearing on SB 10 this week on the NACO bill regarding property tax. We're monitoring it. It's a very minor change to the property tax structure. The chamber opposed some fiscal home rule bills from the city of Reno, SB 73 and SB 11. We don't anticipate these two to move forward, but we are watching them closely and continue to oppose. And then as a reminder, the Chamber's Legislative Day is next Tuesday from 8:30 to 4 o'clock. It is a virtual day for meetings, but we are offering the option if you would like to come to the Vegas Chamber offices and gather with other members to participate in the meetings, you can do so, or you can just watch from the comfort of your home or office. But I want to thank Cox Communications, Black & Wadhams, Boyd Gaming, Hightower, IGT, NV Energy, Porter Group, and Southwest Gas for their support of the Legislative Day. Registration does close tomorrow. Oops. And then finally, as a reminder, our Chamber of Washington, D.C. fly-in with LVGA is September 20th through the 23rd. Registration is also now available at vegaschamber.com. So those are the updates from the team. And if there are any questions, Dale, let's see if there's any questions from the audience.
Okay, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, or you can click the hand raise button. If you're calling in, you can also press *9 to raise your hand.
While we give folks a moment or so, for those who are considering the Chamber's Legislative Day, we will be meeting with the governor and the majority leader and the speaker and committee chairs and the state treasurer and the secretary of state. So we encourage you to participate, and you can register at vegaschamber.com. Dylan, do we have any questions today?
I am not seeing any questions right now.
All right, great. Well, then thank you again to our sponsor, Lumen, and thank you for everybody for participating in today's poll call, and a great job to our team as we are almost to the halfway mark. We're about 62 days left, I believe, of session. Hopefully we'll see many of you next Tuesday for our Legislative Day starting at 8:30. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thank you to our sponsor.